Hi, my name is Jennifer Warden. I'm the Youth Services Librarian at the Matheson Memorial Library. I run the blog Gene Little Library and Associated Blogs, and I'm going to talk today a little bit about what it's like to run a category for Cybils. I've been involved with Cybils since 2009 as a round one panelist for picture book category, what was in the nonfiction picture book category, easy readers and early chapter books, and graphic novels. And in 2012, I took over the nonfiction picture book category from the redoubtable Fiona Bayrock. And a few years later, I adapted and changed it to become the elementary and middle grade nonfiction category. So one of the things the category organizer does at the very beginning, of course, is select the judges, and everyone brings their own twist to their category, their own personality, their own emphasis on different things. One of the things I like to emphasize, and one of the things that I think is so great about Cybils, is the diversity of opinions. So when I'm looking for judges, I try to, and most of us do this, pick out people from a lot of different backgrounds and experiences. Authors, illustrators, parents, teachers, school librarians, public librarians. This year we have a panelist who is a science professor who also works with student teachers. And so a lot of different backgrounds, and that really makes a difference when it comes to the discussions. I also look at the way people blog, see if they're, especially with nonfiction, there's a lot more aspects to it than just, did I like this book? Well, kids like this book. I think it's important to consider how the information is presented, the accuracy, of course, and how it, not just will kids like this, but how it's going to tie into their interests, what they're studying. Why are kids going to check this out? You know, it can be a marvelous, wonderful book, but if it doesn't speak to the kids, the subject is just going to sit on the shelf. I mean, the subject is not going to be of interest to the kids if it's not presented in a way that's going to grab them. So I look for panelists who are looking for those things. Because that's what Cybils is all about, the literary quality and the child appeal. And then as we move further into Cybils, like I said, everyone does their panel a little differently. I am not usually a judge on my own, in my own category. I do that for a couple different reasons. First, because I like to judge in other categories. Secondly, because I have very strong opinions, and without another organizer to moderate us, I will totally take over the panel. And thirdly, because I enjoy moderating as organizer and not necessarily as a member of the discussions. It's really interesting to sit back and ask the questions that will get people thinking about the books and kind of nudge them to think about them in a different way. And I actually learned a lot about how to bring a diverse group of people together in discussing things from a literature professor of mine in undergrad, Dr. Catherine Rainwater, who taught honors classes with students from a lot of different disciplines. And she was just amazing the way she could bring people together to discuss things from a lot of different viewpoints, and not just turn it into a, well, I feel this and I feel that, which a lot of literature classes do tend to descend into, but to get people actually thinking and seeing things through the lens of their own experience and others' experience. So I really like to talk, kind of to moderate my panelists and see, like, I've got a science professor. She's going to look at things differently than a parent with maybe an English literature degree background. I have panelists who are teachers. They're going to look at things very differently from someone who's a school librarian or a public librarian. And even people from different areas of the country. We've had discussions about whether something's really relevant, and depending on where you are in the country. You know, are kids on the East Coast going to be interested in this, or kids on the West Coast or in the Midwest? How is it presented to someone who maybe has no experience or idea about this subject just because of where they live? So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what I like to think about when I'm running a Cybils category and panel is diversity of experience. We all bring something to it, and when we all bring our own experiences and backgrounds together and think and talk about the books from a lot of different aspects, that's how we end up with the great finalists that will introduce kids to amazing books. And thank you for listening.